From Washington, the McLaughlin Group, the American original. For over 3 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Hello and welcome back. Our guest today is David Wasserman from the Cook Political Report. Welcome, David.
Thanks.
And on that note, we will go to our first issue, which is issue 1, striking Assad.
My fellow Americans, a short time ago, I ordered the United States Armed Forces to launch precision strikes on targets associated.
President Trump this week ordered the U.S. military to respond to a chemical attack in Syria on April 7th, which took around 70 lives. The action came in the form of U.S., French and British airstrikes on Bashar al-Assad's regime. Targeting chemical weapon and command structures across Syria, the strikes inflicted a number of casualties.
Pat, we aren't sure yet, actually, as to whether there are casualties, but President Trump yesterday morning tweeted, "Mission accomplished." Is this mission accomplished?
I think the real question is what comes next. If Trump says mission accomplished, General Mattis had said it's a one-shot deal. Trump had threatened to do this. Obama didn't enforce his red line. Trump's got it done. Putin, it sounds like Putin is behaving fairly responsible. And Trump wants out of Syria. So the real question is, what follows this? And let me tell a brief anecdote. I wrote Ronald Reagan's speech, Ollie North and I did, attacking Libya, the intelligence agency, when they blew up our discotheque in Berlin. Nothing happened for 2 years until what followed was what the Pan Am 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland. So we better wait and see what the final results are going to be. But I hope this is just a step on the way out of Syria.
Yeah, I mean, this is an attack that was waged correctly, righteously is the word that the president used, with the key allies, the UK and France.
But not Germany.
And, well, yeah, Germany and military action you kind of want to avoid. So I think those were the appropriate allies, and it was as surgical a strike as possible. It's still mostly theater. This is not going to change anything on the ground. I don't think it's going to affect Assad. If the message gets through to anyone, it might be to Putin. I mean, it's the Russians who really have leverage of what's happening in Syria. And I agree with Pat. I mean, I don't think there's any sense that this administration has any strategy for what's next. I mean, they're grappling with the same set of difficult choices that President Obama grappled with.
Clarence, how do you read this in terms of, it seems to be quite a lot of Democratic support at the moment, which is interesting based on this president. I mean, why do you think that is?
The Democrats aren't all doves as far as the necessity to serve the national interest. The problem is nobody knows what peace in Syria looks like.
Right.
Nobody knows what the resolution looks like over there. And obviously Putin wants to colonize that whole region, and he's succeeding rather well because the U.S. has held back. But things haven't changed enough that we know what to do besides hold back right now.
Well, it's not about peace in Syria. It's about sending a message that you can't use chemical warfare, that we made that decision as a civilized world after World War I, and so that's appropriate.
Clearly, one of the biggest policy failings of the Obama administration was drawing a red line that wasn't credible, and we all remember John Kerry's unbelievably small proposal for an attack, right? And, you know, Trump draws wavy lines in 280 characters or less, but at least by the standards of the Obama administration, politically, he looks more decisive. The problem is, what is the long-term coherent strategy?
I mean, more decisive. Trump says one day we've got to leave Syria, next day we got to go bomb Syria.
But you know, the red line, the reason Obama didn't enforce the red lines, the American people rose up at one and said, we don't want to get involved in this war in Syria. They still don't want to get involved in this war in Syria. The war is basically over. Russia, Hezbollah, Iran, and Assad have won it.
And do you think that's why Putin hasn't reacted?
I mean, he doesn't want a war with the United States. He's got a victory in Syria. In the United States, most Americans don't want to fight in Syria.
Well, General Mattis actually said that they were very careful to go through all the de-escalation channels so that they weren't going to be hitting Russian troops. Deconfliction, de-escalation, whatever. They didn't want it to get out of hand.
Exactly, exactly.
That's right.
And you said theater, it's almost choreographed all the way around here.
Right. The problem is our weapons aren't nearly as accurate as we wish they were, and accidents happen. Putin has spread his Russians around so much of Syria that the real fear is that we're going to take out some Russian command posts.
He might like that.
Clearly,
given
the
Lebanon.
Americans don't
On the
want
plus
to.
side,
Go ahead.
right now, we are a diplomatic mess at the moment, and what the attack shows is, at a very minimum, we are still capable of
Getting
basic
allies.
functions with our allies,
But
right?
we are a totally disunited nation on the Middle East, whether we ought to be there or get out of there. Most Americans are sick of the wars.
Yeah.
Some people feel you got to do something. So I think you read the mind of Trump, and mission accomplished, you can see he wants out.
Yeah, but
Well,
that's
one
not a
thing-
phrase he should use.
You're right
That
about
phrase
that.
will come back to haunt him.
Yeah.
And I do think that most Americans do want to take a stand against chemical attacks.
Unless-
So I think
But we haven't learned the lesson of Somalia. We cannot have a TV-driven war, and that's what we've got here. Once again, Donald Trump, the TV-driven president, like I said, a week ago he was saying we got to pull out of Syria. It's their fight. It's not our fight.
Well,
and Americans applauding.
me ask
Then
it-
you see the video of these kids dying there, and you say, why don't we do something? Well, what
What's
do
our
you do
stance
but
on
military?
refugees?
Yeah.
The administration has
Right.
not made a coherent case that is about refugees.
Yeah,
Exactly
let me ask
right.
a
You're
round
exactly
robin. Let
right.
me ask a round robin question here, because I think this is going to happen. There'll be another chemical weapons attack, Putin challenging the US. At that point, should the president take force again at a higher level than what we've seen on Friday? David, should he do it again?
Well, I think we're going to have to now that this line's
Pat.
crossed.
You've just stated the problem. If they use chlorine again,
Yeah.
is he going to escalate and go hit them again? In which case, you're deeper and deeper into the war you don't want to end.
Right, Eleanor.
That's right.
you know, I just hope the message gets through, because Assad doesn't have to do this. He's won the war.
But if you're in the command chair.
And if I'm in the command chair, I would escalate diplomatic channels with Putin. Putin is the one who can make that stop. We can't. And I think if Assad is determined to use chlorine gas again, no amount of these pinprick airstrikes will deter
Clarence.
him.
That's right. No, it's
President
true.
Page.
It's
All right.
true. So we need to resolve this diplomatically,
Diplomacy.
and that involves Putin.
Yeah, well, on that basis, I worry, though, that if Putin doesn't see the arrows alongside the olive branches, he will not listen. Anyway, on that basis, we will get to our next issue, which is issue 2, the Cohen raid.
This is a pure and simple witch hunt.
Vindicating Eleanor Cliff's prediction last weekend, FBI agents on Monday raided the office and residence of President Trump's longtime lawyer, Michael Cohen. Seizing numerous documents, the agents acted on a referral by special counsel Robert Mueller to federal authorities in New York. But what were the agents looking for? And what does this mean for President Trump? Well, let's find out.
Eleanor Cliff, the oracle. What is the answer?
Well, as the late, great John McLaughlin would say, I stumbled into the truth. The raid escalates the tension around this probe. The president now clearly has Rod Rosenstein in his sights, and the president's allies are arguing there's no there's no collusion. At the same time, they see this raid and the Cohen involvement and the audio tapes that were likely captured as an existential threat to this presidency.
And the Prague visit now seems to have happened, potentially.
Well, right. The dots are getting
Now seems
connected.
to have
The
happened.
president is getting more and more frantic, sending out these signals. The pardon of Scooter Libby,
Right.
blast from the past. Jim Comey named the special counsel that indicted Scooter Libby, and now the president pardons him after President Bush commuted his sentence but refused to pardon him. That is sending a message that, hey, I've got that pardon
Pat,
pen
wait
in
a
my
minute.
hand.
A message to Manafort, Pat?
No, let me say this. What this has done, when you go in there and go into a lawyer's office and grab all his documents and raid his home and his office, the lawyer-client privilege, it sends a message to conservatives that, look, he ain't got any collusion with the Russians. The obstruction of justice isn't working. Let's go after the girls. So I think to a degree, this is going to contaminate the political case being made against Trump when this whole thing gets into a political realm, which it's going to do.
David, well, let's let
It's
David
already in the
Dave-
political realm.
David, what do you think?
If Cohen was in Prague, obviously that's a massive problem. But if this is about paying off porn stars,
Exactly.
then it plays into the narrative that the investigation has gone beyond its original intended scope.
Right.
And by the way, swing voters right now, a lot of them don't really care about Stormy Daniels or
David's
porn
got
stars
it exactly
because a lot
right.
of them voted for Bill Clinton.
Pat Buchanan, Mr. Dorsey, let me ask you.
I
Excellent,
remind
David.
you, I remind you, none of that stopped Clinton's impeachment. You know, these special prosecutor or special counsel investigations do go far afield, but doesn't make them any less legitimate.
You're going to get the House, and
I don't doubt.
I'm not sure an impeachment, which I do think you will get, that effort, if Democrats take the House, which I think they will, I'm not sure that is a loser once all this gets into the political realm.
Right. If Democrats take the House, then you've got impeachment right there, because it's a political process. It's not a legal
David's
process.
the expert on the House races, and he told me that the midterms are now a referendum on President Trump, and if the Democrats turn that into a referendum on impeachment, that's a debatable question. So let the Republicans talk about impeachment. The Democrats' response should be, we're paying attention to the issues.
And David, you know, practically though, this is inherently political, right? That it has moved from the judiciary to the political side, and to some degree that limits, you know, if they were to try and take on the president based on this, as Pat and you have suggested, because that politicized, it becomes very hard.
Of course. And look, from a political perspective, obviously the president's administration, the team is going to be saying, look, you originally were investigating collusion. Now you've got all these other things. You're going down all these rabbit holes. And so they're going to try and spin it that way. But
that trick never works. It doesn't work.
What voters care about is what affects their everyday lives.
It depends on the voter, doesn't it? You know, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you know, you're the expert. 80% of voters vote the same partisan way each election. The rest are the swing voters, but those are the ones who really decide this, and they have not decided.
But given the savagery, there's a larger issue here. Given the savagery of the issues and the hostility, and frankly, going into the porn star stuff, this country is just entirely too divided and against each other to go into any kind of war.
They're not that divided. Washington Post polls, 70% of the American people want the Russian probe to continue unimpeded, and 58% want
How about the girlfriend probe?
58%, they want that completed.
The
girls is not about you can have an affair, that's not against the law. Well, you can even pay hush money, it's not against the law. But where that money came from and your efforts to cover it up is where you get into illegal territory.
The Federal Election Commission rules
and
violated Stormy Daniels.
And Michael Cohen taped a lot of phone calls, not just related to the girls, but with various players and discussing various things, including with candidate Trump and President Trump.
One problem,
so
Tom,
those audio tapes are a trove.
Michael Cohen apparently has been, we find out as of Saturday morning, has been under criminal investigation for months.
Right. And very quickly, what does the Comey book do? Does it help Trump because of the sort of narratives of pans and things, or does it hurt Trump?
Well, look, if you've got the
help or hurt?
If you got the word of a career
help
prosecutor,
help.
It hurts Comey.
No.
Comey.
David's going to get his go. He has to think about it though.
It helps. It is a thoughtful portrayal of a law enforcement official and how he was treated by a president who's a member. It helps.
And the stark contrast between Comey and Trump is so obvious. Right. And Comey has gotten the Trump crime family scenario out there into public discussion
David.
now, and that's where it belongs.
You've got the word against a career prosecutor who served both parties against a guy who was a birther for a long time. I think I know who to believe, but the fact that Comey has gone out there and talked about tanning goggles and mob boss, I think undercuts the case he's
All right.
Even if it's true.
Yeah. When we come back, midterm maileys and plastic problems. And tell your friends they can watch us anytime from Sunday 1 p.m. at our website, McLaughlin.com. We'll see you in a moment.
Hi, I'm Pat Coleman from Jim Coleman Cadillac. This year, we're proud to celebrate our 50th anniversary serving our customers in Bethesda and all across the D.C. area. For 3 generations, our family's been committed to being the best in luxury automotive sales and service, and we invite you to join us in celebrating the half-century mark by taking advantage of our 50th anniversary specials all year long. We want to earn your business, and we hope to welcome you to the Coleman family because our cars are great, but our people are better.
The McLaughlin Group is brought to you in part by Eric.org. With gridlock in Washington, states are stepping in to mandate paid sick and family leave policies, creating a compliance nightmare for companies with a nationwide workforce. The ERISA Industry Committee is fighting back. Learn how we can help your company at Eric.org.
Issue 3, midterm melee.
According to a poll of polls this week by polling analysis website 538, 47.2% of respondents intend to vote Democrat in the November midterm elections. 38.6% of voters intend to vote Republican. But in this year of trade wars, Syrian chemical attacks, North Korean ICBM, Special Counsel Robert Mueller, and now the decision by Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan to step down, anything could happen on Election Day. Fortunately, we have a top expert in the studio who will tell us what is going on.
Topper expert, what is going on?
2018 is the year of the angry white female college graduate. That's who's voting. That's who's running in these races. I used to say that if Democrats were going to take back the House this decade under these gerrymandered maps, they would either need a resettlement program of their voters to move them out of urban America into competitive districts, or they'd need an unpopular Republican president in a midterm year. Guess what we have? And when's the last time you've seen a sitting Speaker of the House essentially say fold?
And do you think that's because he senses the tea leaves? Or smells the tea leaves?
I don't think his opponent in Wisconsin ran him out of the House. Donald Trump ran him out of the House. His takeover of the party's complete.
I think Republicans in the House are in the Alamo, and Paul Ryan was just seen riding out and heading north before the Mexicans got there. I think they're in real
Ryan's
trouble.
retirement is the biggest tip-off yet that a Democratic wave is building if the Democrats don't screw it up. And I take your comments very seriously that if Democrats want to win these marginal districts that are controlled by Republicans, they can't just go in there and talk about impeachment and how much they hate Donald Trump. It's got to be about the issues people care about. And you have said that's health care, it's immigration.
And a tax bill that a lot of Trump Democrats see as a giveaway to the rich.
Right.
And this is, well, Ryan, remember, is only the most prominent of, about 39 Republicans who are not running again. This time it's a record number of folks who are bowing out of the race, because it's just not fun anymore. If you can't raise taxes and you can't cut spending and you can't get reelected, then what fun is it?
You know, we got Pennsylvania too, and states like that. Look, they've redistricted that. That's going to cost them maybe up to half a dozen seats, isn't it?
Yeah. When you've got Republicans losing a seat in Pennsylvania that Trump won by 20, that's a pretty good sign.
And David, let me ask you, what's going to happen with the Senate? I mean, well, first, actually, let me ask you, what is the potential, the little slimmer of possibility that the Republicans hold the House?
Well, probably 30% at this point.
And what happens in the Senate?
Well, this is a tale of two battlegrounds, right? Because we've never seen this little overlap between the House, which is going to be decided by suburbs where Republicans are on defense, and the Senate, which is going to be decided by a lot of rural states where Democrats are on defense. So I could see a scenario where Democrats stay even or even lose a Senate seat or two while taking back the House by a wide margin.
Interesting, interesting. Eleanor, what do you think?
Any ground the Democrats can regain is progress, because they've lost so much over the last
Will they
10
be having
years.
Mark Zuckerberg to fundraisers?
You know,
Democrats are also beginning to learn
anybody wants to raise money for the Democrats is welcome.
The key thing in the Senate, if they maintain control of the Senate, that is a blocking force on impeachment. Bill Clinton can tell you that.
Which may be just as well. I mean, the fact
your boss, Charlie Cook, is now putting the odds of the Democrats taking the Senate, I think, at 35%, and he thinks that might be a little low. I mean, this is the first time in this cycle, he says, that the Senate is within reach for the Democrats.
But it's why you're talking one or two
Every
seats,
time the
aren't you?
voters get a chance to register their opinions, it's a clear anti-Trump vote that's out there.
Does the deficit matter?
the deficit? Well, obviously it doesn't matter anymore, because the deficit-fighting party just
matters to me.
It will matter
matters to
if the
people
economy
who-
turns. If the economy turns, it will matter then. People will blame the deficit.
No, it matters to Democrats who are worried that even without Ryan there, that the Republicans are going to raid Social Security and Medicare and go after their entitlements. And so voters are aware of that, right,
Fundamentally,
David?
the problem is Trump voters are loyal to Trump, not congressional Republicans. He's not on the ballot. And you know what else? Hillary Clinton's not on the ballot to motivate them. Democrats are motivated.
Who's his
they're
whipping
angry.
horse?
Well, Nancy Pelosi,
Anybody he can find.
but
she's not necessarily. Democrats don't have a clear leader at this point, and that's a great advantage for them.
The Democrats are also learning how to win elections again, though. This is the other thing about Pennsylvania. They know to get a good candidate. In that case, you had a pro-union Iraq War veteran and who was a very attractive candidate. In Wisconsin now, in Ryan's district, you have the iron
Yeah.
stash.
Okay.
It was
All
another
right.
a lot of
blue
personal
We're
collar.
going to get on
problems.
to our fourth and final issue, which I know the panel are all very excited about. Issue 4, plastic problems.
Very authoritative prediction shows that by the year 2050, there'll be as much plastic as there is fish in the ocean by weight.
Concerned that increasing areas of the oceans are now heavily polluted by plastic waste, some governments are taking aggressive action to tax or otherwise clamp down on their citizens' use of plastic products. The British government has just announced a plan to tax consumers who buy plastic bottles. If consumers then return the plastic product to the store where they first purchased it, their deposit will also be returned. Beyond the deposit scheme, other efforts to reduce the use of plastic products are also underway around the world. In some nations, for example, plastic bags are taxed at the point of sale.
Clarence, this issue is kind of important to me because my brother is a marine biologist and he sends me all these stories. They just find, fish,
Heartbreaking.
terrible. Do you think we should tax plastic bags, though?
There are islands of garbage floating around the Pacific going, I think it's a counterclockwise direction now. It's getting bigger and bigger because of all this. Well, if you want less of something, tax it. So I'm in favor of that. But that's only the beginning. I think around the world now people are becoming more aware of the dangers.
Boycott straws there and plastic water bottles, and it's heartbreaking the way a huge whale just showed up, a juvenile whale, all this plastic garbage in her stomach. The Graduate, the movie, what was that, 1968?
That's a ton.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the advice then to the young man
Plastics.
looking for said plastics. And
That
he
wasn't
was
the only
right
advice.
there. Well, he's right. The
Tom,
other
here's-
advice isn't as harmful.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
all for going strawless, but what are the chances of the U.S. considering a plastic tax? Just to give you an idea, 5 of the top 10 states for plastics employment in the industry per capita: Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and
Good
North
point.
Carolina.
Look at the source of the problem.
Good point.
90% of the plastic dumped into the oceans comes from 10 rivers. The Nile and the Niger in Africa. 5 of the rivers in China: Yangtze River, Yellow River, Mekong River down through Vietnam, Indus in India. These are the people putting all the plastic into the ocean. You're going to tax me? This is, if you get control of these governments and get them to do something, sanction them and not the American
The
consumer.
United
That is some
States-
wonderful geography.
The United States should lead the fight in something. This is
not our
detrimental to
rivers.
wildlife. It's our planet. It's our
Well,
wildlife.
talk to the Chinese. They're the one putting the plastic into the ocean.
Well, we've still got some ducks out here in the river who are getting
Do you
choked
think
on
this
these
could
plastic
be,
bottles.
I want a yes or no, do you think this could be the next whale treaty, right? We had the 1980s, the big international. Do you think there could be a movement towards an international sort of
If we
action
can't
on
be part of the
plastics?
Paris Accord, how is there any hope for any kind of
You think
international accord
Trump
on
is going to
plastics that we're
lead
involved
this
in?
effort to globally control the plastic going into the ocean?
No, Trump and Pat Buchanan and their ilk,
Chinese,
unfortunately,
Eleanor.
unfortunately, win the battle in the short term. But in the long term, this has to be addressed.
Okay, Clarence.
Well, we've already started changing our habits. I've got to carry my own tote bag over to the grocery store now because of little fines.
And the
against
younger
plastic
generation,
bags.
that is
That's right.
interesting, the fashion of it, and you
Yeah.
see with certain companies, I won't give them free advertising, you
How
can
do
have
you get
plastic
control of
clothes. Do
these-
you have plastic clothes?
How do you control these countries, China and India and
China.
Egypt?
They're
If
learning.
they're the ones who do
learning.
it.
China's
China-
waking up. They don't want to drown
waking-
under a sea of plastic
Well,
either.
then tell them to stop dumping it in the ocean.
They're learning.
they're
but
getting the
you got a
message.
billion people in China.
Right.
I mean, it's not. They don't change on a dime, but they're already trying to breathe in
So they should
Beijing
tax
with all
you
the
in
coal.
Tacoma
And they're-
Park.
and
No,
China's
they got
taken
their own-
2.7 trillion tons of EU plastic waste in the last 7 years.
Yeah, but who's the one putting it in the water and into the rivers
But
and into
Pat,
the ocean?
We all are. Everybody is.
But what fish do you eat? What's your favorite fish?
Tuna fish.
Well, mercury.
Salmon. I eat salmon, Norwegian and Nova Scotian salmon.
Salmon is better for
It's
you,
excellent.
but a lot of this fish though, sushi, they do
it's
mercury.
not.
Yeah, it's
Lobsters,
terrible.
It's
No.
tragedy.
Yeah.
This is why I'm strictly turf, not surf.
Okay.
We all make our decisions in life. That's right.
Okay, all right. I'm thinking a little curveball here. Mekong Delta. What is that also known for?
It was big in the South Vietnam, in the war in Vietnam. It was huge. Clarence
right.
can talk about that. That was our generation. We weren't there, but the Mekong Delta was where the war in South Vietnam was fought.
What's pertinent here is how productive Vietnam is now. They
Yeah, it
are
is.
they're like China. They may have a communist party, but it's really state
And we talked about that
capitalism.
last week?
Yes, right.
We will be right back with predictions.
Generation Hope is a nonprofit organization that helps DC area teen moms and dads become college graduates. We provide them with tuition assistance, one-on-one mentoring, and crisis support until they graduate.
A lot of crises along the way. There have already been a lot of crises.
My mom passed away, and I do everything for my mom in memory of her. I dedicate this graduation to her on Mother's Day.
When a young parent earns their college degree, the likelihood that that child will go to college goes up, and they will earn $1 million more over the course of their lifetime.
Naraya Omar.
It's a tremendous return on investment. And all of these issues that we care about, homelessness, child welfare, poverty, this really makes a difference and it changes lives.
Congratulations. Have a wonderful weekend.
Predictions, Pat.
Jim Comey's publisher is nervous today, Tom, because hundreds of thousands of volumes of his are going to be remaindered of that book he just wrote.
I disagree, but Comey, in his new book, Higher Loyalty, compares Trump and people around him to a mafia family in terms of the loyalty they expect from each other. Well, in all the mafia movies I've watched, they eventually turn on each other, and I think Michael Cohen will be cooperating with the special counsel within a matter of weeks, if not days.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, David.
Democrats will take back the House in November, but Nancy Pelosi will not have 218 votes to be Speaker, which means that Minority Whip Steny Hoyer will get to live out his dream of becoming Speaker for one caretaker term.
And do you think he'll get any major accomplishments?
Besides Democrats in an oversight role, not really.
You're asking a lot there.
What's your prediction?
I predict that Congress will pass new laws to regulate Facebook as soon as they figure out how it works, which is not even close to getting to that point yet.
Okay. That could be concerns about free speech there. Anyway, I predict that Jared Kushner will soon find himself front and center on the special counsel's radar. And here's a random fact. 153 years ago today, President Abraham Lincoln died after being shot by an assassin at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. We remember him as the president who saved the Union, and I grew up thinking what a hero he was. Anyway, thank you very much, panelists, for joining us. And we thank you for watching us, of course, and we hope you'll join us next week. But until then, make sure to follow us at Twitter at McLaughlin Group, and follow our webpage where you can watch this show from 1 p.m. on Sunday today. Bye-bye.